Anjananandanam Biram Vajatam Kapisham Bande Shri Ramadutam Janaki Shokanashanam. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. I would like to join with our chairman, Bhaiji Vijay Bisram, in saying a very special welcome to all you wonderful devotees who have joined us here at the ashram this evening on this very holy day, Hanuman Jayanti, as well as all of you who have joined us online. A special welcome to all of you. We're so happy that you're able to join us and to share our live feed with your family and friends. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Swami Biswanathanandaji Maharaj and Swami Shivamritanandaji Maharaj, and of course our chairman, Bhaiji Vijay Bisram, who is also streaming our satsang live. We would also like to say thanks to our sponsors for our satsang this evening, Bahin Savitri Shazaman. She is a wonderful devotee of our ashram and very, very generous donor. We'd like to thank her for all her kindness to the ashram and for sponsoring this evening. Our satsang is also sponsored by Bahin Raj Day and Bhaiji Kripa Raghabir. Bahin Raj Day is no stranger to you. She is also a long-standing devotee of our ashram. And our third sponsor for this evening's satsang is Bhaiji Rupchan Hardwar. We'd also like to say thanks to Bhaiji Rupchan for making this satsang possible. Devotees, this world seems to be filled with seeming injustices. And so it was that Anjani, the mother of Hanumanji, she was a divine damsel. Her abode was Swarglok. She belonged to heaven. But through no fault of hers, she was given shrap. And so she was born on earth as an ape woman. But yet, even in that form, her devotion to God never left her. Every day that devotion grew to such a point that she felt that she wanted to go into solitude, into seclusion, to worship Lord Shiva. Can you imagine how blessed, how spiritually advanced she was? She had reached a point in her sadhana where she felt that she wanted to commune for a long period with her Lord Shiva. And so, with the permission of her husband, she left all alone to go in seclusion in the forest. And there she worshipped Lord Shiva, chanting the Panchakshara mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Last Sunday, I mentioned the efficacy of jap, how powerful jap is, how powerful chanting God's name is. And so Anjani was deep in bliss as she chanted the divine name of Lord Shiva. In this chaupai from Hanuman Chalisa, the poet writes,
Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहो लोक उजागर। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहो लोक उजागर।
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
राम दूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। राम दूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा।
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
Anjani, up to that point, was childless. And the Lord, knowing the desire in the heart of this devotee, pleased with her devotion, decided to fulfill her desire. Around the same time that Anjani was doing sadhana to Lord Shiva, King Dasrath was performing the yajna to be blessed with children. And so when that yajna came to a successful conclusion, as Agni appeared from the fire with the kir, it is said that some of the kir was taken by Pawan at the instruction of Lord Shiva. And Pawan delivered that kir into the hands of Anjani as she was in deep meditation. Feeling that something was in her palms, she opened her eyes and she saw that kir and she took it as the prasadam of Lord Shiva. And so by the grace of God, a son was born to her. We see the relationship at the very outset between Hanumanji and Sri Ram. Hanumanji was born on the Purnima in the month of Chaitra, a day like today. This full moon is referred to in Western circles as a super moon. It's very big because the moon is very close to the earth. Perhaps the second closest it will ever come. And it is called the pink moon, not because it is pink in color, but because at this time the flowers are blooming. And the flowers, according to the Indian tradition, native Indian tradition, many of the flowers appear to be pink or yellowish. So they call this super moon, this full moon, the pink super moon. It is so fitting that Hanumanji was born on a full moon like this, on a Purnima like this, on a super full moon. Lord Shiva came to bless the little one when he was born. Lord Shiva took a disguise as a pandit, and blessing Hanumanji, he named him Maruti. That was how Hanumanji got the name Maruti. He got it from Lord Shiva. The parents also had a nickname for Hanumanji, and they called him Sundar. That is why they count the chapter in Ramcharitmanas that is dedicated to Hanumanji's exploits is sometimes called, or it is called, Sundarkand. Sundar also means beautiful. How did he get the name Hanuman? You all know the story when he was small. The story goes that he mistook the sun for a ripe fruit, and as he was flying towards the sun, Indradev got worried for the sun's safety and struck Hanumanji with his Vajra, his thunderbolt, which hit him flush on his jaw, and he fell to the ground unconscious. And Pawan, being very angry at what Indradev did, stopped blowing, and the whole world was suffocating. So to placate Pawan, Indradev, and all the other devas, they revived Hanumanji and they blessed him with boons. Hanuman means one who is large-jawed, because as a result of that Vajra hitting him on the jaw, his jaw became swollen. So that is why he was called Hanuman, because of this elongated jaw as a result of the hit from Indradev's thunderbolt. We can also interpret it symbolically, because some people say, well, that is a Nancy story for Hanumanji to be flying towards the sun and mistaking it to be a ripe fruit. You can take it literally or you can take it symbolically. What is it symbolizing? What's the inner meaning? The sun in all its radiance is symbolic of God, God's light. And it tells us that Hanumanji was making rapid progress in his devotion and his love for God and his sadhana. We all know that Hanumanji was a great yogi. So he was practicing yoga. He was developing very rapidly in the spiritual path, but as we always know, Indradev, no matter whether it is a child or an adult doing sadhana, he was always fearful that they were after his throne. In Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas used some very harsh words to describe Indradev. And so, he put obstacles in Hanumanji's path. He tried to stop him in his sadhana. Hanumanji was sent first to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva was his first guru who taught him devotion. And then he went to Suryadev, who taught him all knowledge, spiritual and secular. And Hanumanji was so strong physically that he was able to tame a great enemy of Surya, Rahu. Hanumanji was able to capture Rahu, imprison him, and bring him to his guru, Surya. Hanumanji was also able to free Shanidev. Shanidev was captured by Ravan. Ravan was so powerful. But Hanumanji was able to free Shanidev and the Navgraha Devtas from Ravan when Hanumanji went to Lanka. And in gratitude, Shanidev is the one who blesses us or causes planetary obstacles in our path. So in gratitude to Hanumanji, Shani said, "Oh Hanuman, your devotees, those who love you, those who worship you, will never be affected by my negative influence. Planetary obstacles will not stand in their path." And that is why so many worship Hanumanji, because they know that when they worship Hanumanji, bad luck will not come in their way. The two couplets from the Hanuman Chalisa says, "Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar." Glory to you, Hanuman, Gyan Gun Sagar. You are the ocean of all knowledge. You are the ocean of all knowledge and all virtue. Glory to the enlightener of the three worlds. You are Ram's envoy, abode of incomparable might, Anjaneya's son, Pawan Sut. Hanumanji is filled not only with physical might, but he has divine buddhi, divine intellect. And we see that coming to the fore when he was acting as Sri Ram's envoy, searching for Sita Ma, when he had to cross the ocean. The mountain came up. It meant, well, Hanuman, your journey is long. Take rest on my peak and then you can continue. In the spiritual path, sometimes our inner enemies can be subtle. They can be well-meaning. But we always have to be careful. They can slow our progress. Hanumanji said to the mountain, remember I said behind every mountain, behind every hill, there is God's consciousness. There is intelligence. Hanumanji said to the mountain, how can I rest before I've completed God's work? I am doing God's work. I cannot rest. When we're seeking God, when we're doing God's work, we cannot take vacation from God's work. When we're doing sadhana, we cannot take a break from our sadhana. In other words, what I'm saying, that our devotion and our love for God must be continuous. Whatever we do, whether we are at work, whether we're at home, whether we're sitting in meditation, whether we're walking on the streets, our aim should always be communion with God. One Swami put it this way, when you rest, you rust. And that is so true. We cannot rest because the journey is so long and the time is so short. It's not wise to rest in the spiritual path. So that's the first lesson Hanumanji is teaching us as he's flying over the ocean. When you're doing God's work, when you're seeking God, you cannot rest. You cannot be idle. It must be a continuous effort. Then as he continued, he meets Sursa. As Hanumanji widened his body, because Sursa was saying, you have to enter my mouth. I will not let you cross. And her mouth was very wide. Hanumanji made his body wider. But every time he made his body wider, Sursa made her mouth even wider. And as she was making her mouth bigger and bigger, her eyes were closed with the effort. And suddenly Hanumanji made his body small, entered her mouth and came out. Hanumanji had all the siddhis. He could make his body as large as he wanted or as small as he wanted. Then he said, I fulfilled your wish. I've entered your mouth. And when Sursa saw the wisdom of this great devotee of the Lord, she changed her form and she blessed him. Because she was a Devi who was sent by the Devas to test Hanumanji. Only the best could fulfill this mission of Sri Ram. They wanted to make sure Hanumanji had all the qualities. Sursa represents trials and struggles in the spiritual path. Sometimes the more efforts we make, the more we face a wall in front of us, a spiritual wall. And that is where we have to use our wit, our intelligence. And when we can overcome our obstacles, the very obstacles which were stopping our progress become our friends and help us. So Sursa now assumed a divine form and blesses Hanumanji. Oh Hanuman, you will succeed in your mission. And you will think that was not enough. As he continued, he found that he couldn't fly anymore. He was being pulled down into the water. And when he looked down, he saw Singika. This Singika, this demoness, had a special power that whenever birds will fly in the air or any object will fly in the air, it will latch on to their shadow and pull them down using magic. And as it pulled them down, it will, as Singika pulled them down, she would eat them. So Hanumanji was being pulled down. As I said on Sunday, not because we do God's work, we will escape difficulties and trials. No. In fact, we will find that the more we follow God's footsteps, the more we strive for God, the more troubles will come. But Lord Krishna promises us in Bhagavad Gita that his devotee can never be destroyed. So imagine Hanumanji was doing God's work, and yet he was facing this obstacle. He was facing imminent death, imminent destruction from this Singika. But then he remembered the name of Sri Ram, and as he chanted Jai Shri Ram, he felt powers surging through his body, and he was able to destroy Singika. What does Singika represent? What is the shadow that she latches onto? Our shadows are our lower nature, greed, anger, lust. When they are present, Singika is ready to pull us down from the spiritual path and to gobble us up, to destroy us, to bring us back to this world of Maya and delusion. How do we get rid of these inner enemies, this lower nature? Hanumanji shows us by chanting God's name, by being in tune, in communion with God. In this next chaupai from Hanuman Chalisa, the poet writes,
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा।
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे।
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama.
Though Ram himself is a supreme ascetic, Lord of all, yet you fulfilled his mission successfully. Hanumanji is referred to as Ram Dhoot. The word Dhoot means servant. It means an envoy. It means a messenger. Yet Hanumanji is infinitely more than a Dhoot. He is Ram's well-wisher. When Lakshman was dying on the battlefield and Ram was sunk in despair, he brought the Sajivani Muri to save Lakshman's life. He is Ram's protector. Without him, Ram's mission could never have been fulfilled successfully. Meghnad's serpent darts had bounced Sri Ram and Lakshman, and they were dying. It was Hanuman who brought Garud from Vishnu Lok, and Garud was able to tear these snakes to shreds, and so Ram and Lakshman were revived. When Ahiravan kidnapped Ram and Lakshman and took them to offer them in a sacrifice, it was Hanuman who rescued them. So without Hanumanji, Ram's mission would have failed. He is the selfless devotee. He wanted nothing for himself. Sugriv, he accepted a kingdom. He wanted a kingdom. So he sought the friendship of Sri Ram, and he was given a kingdom. Vibhishan, he also accepted the kingdom of Lanka. There was some selfish motive. But Hanumanji, he wanted nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even when the necklace, the valuable necklace was offered to him by Sri Ram, he was biting it to open it. And when he was asked, Hanuman, why are you doing this? Why are you destroying this very precious necklace? It's an heirloom of the royal family. It's priceless. Hanumanji said to Lakshman, I'm trying to open it because if it doesn't have Ram and Sita inside, it has no value to me. Can you imagine the height of this great being? If God is not present in this locket, then it has no value to me, because my only treasure, my only prized possession is Ram. The Chaupai says, whoever expresses a longing to you is rewarded with countless fruits of life. Those who worship Hanumanji with a longing to have his darshan, they would be blessed with many blessings. Tulsidas himself could not have seen Sri Ram, could not have had the darshan of Sri Ram without the blessings of Hanumanji. It was through the kindness and the blessings of Hanumanji that Tulsidas was able to have the darshan of Sri Ram. Hanumanji is learned, accomplished, and exceedingly wise. Vidyavan Guni Ati Chatur. In Lanka, he couldn't find Mother Sita where she was being kept because the kingdom was sprawling. It was huge. And Hanumanji knew that time was of essence. He searched all the palaces, but he couldn't find Sita. Where could she be? So he made friends with Vibhishan, and from Vibhishan, he found out where Sita was being held prisoner. He saw Sita's depression and knew that if he should suddenly appear, she might be frightened. She might think that he was one of the Rakshas in disguise, and she might give him up, because when she would cry out in fear, the Rakshas and Rakshasis will come running. So what he did, to gradually build her confidence, he hid in the tree under which she was sitting, and he dropped the ring as he sang the Katha of Sri Ram. And gradually, he won her confidence before revealing himself. See his wisdom. He saw the arrogance of the Rakshas and the Rakshasis and knew that he must drive fear into them so that they will not harm Sita. He also wanted to break Ravan's confidence. Some people only learn the hard way. Kindness will not change them. And this was the case with the Rakshas and Rakshasis. So Hanumanji knew that he had to teach them a hard lesson. And so he started to destroy the garden, to eat all the fruits and pull out all the trees. And when the soldiers came, he destroyed them all. When the generals came, the powerful generals came, he also destroyed them, including one of Ravan's sons. When the powerful Indrajit was the son of Ravan. Indrajit means the one who won victory over Indra, over the king of heaven. When he came, he couldn't defeat Hanuman. He had to use his most powerful weapon, the Brahma Astra. Hanumanji, if he wanted, he could have prevented that weapon from binding him. He had that power. But he wanted to meet face to face with Ravan and to deliver Sri Ram's message. So he allowed himself to be bound by the Brahmastra, and then he delivered his message to Ravan. When he was ready to leave, he knew that Sri Ram would not doubt him. But he didn't want to leave any stone unturned to convince Sri Ram that he had actually met Sita. So he asked Sita for a piece of her jewelry to convince Sri Ram that he had met her. And he also told her that, Ma, tell me a story that only you and Sri Ram know of. That way, when I relate it to Sri Ram, you will have no doubt whatsoever in his heart that I met you. And Sita Ma told him the story of Indradev's son, his stupid son, Jayanta, who pecked the foot of Mavasita. And Sri Ram had shot that arrow at him. And wherever he went, the arrow pursued him. He had to come back and fall at Sri Ram's feet and beg for forgiveness. It is said that Sri Ram forgave him partially. He blinded one of his eyes, because sometimes people only learn when there are consequences. When forgiveness is easily given, the sin is repeated. So Jayanta, when he would look and see that he only had one eye and one of his eyes was blind, he would always remember his folly and he will never repeat that sin. In this Chaupai from Sundarkand of the Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas writes,
O Ram Raja Ram Raja Ram Raja Ram Bol Ram Raja Ram Raja Ram Raja Ram O Ram Raja Ram Raja Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai
Kapito hi नहीं को सुर नर मुनि तनुधारी सुनो कपितो ही समानुपकारी नहीं को सुर नर मुनि तनुधारी
ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम राजा राम ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम राजा राम राम
प्रति उपकार करो काटोर सन्मुख होई न सकत मन मोर प्रति उपकार करो काटोर सन्मुख होई न सकत मन मोर
ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम राजा राम ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम राजा राम ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम रामाय नमः रामाय नमः रामाय नमः रामाय नमः ओ राम राजा राम राजा राम राजा राम 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 राम.
And even though Hanumanji accomplished so much for Sri Ram, he was always so humble. Never any sign of pride in him. He said to Sri Ram, Jano nahi kachu bhajana upai, Lord, I don't even know a song, a bhajan to sing, a song of praise to sing for you, my Lord. I don't know anything. Even though he had supreme intelligence, divine knowledge, see how he handles it with humility. That is why he's deserving of it, because he's so humble. My Lord, I am just a zero. You are the one which gives value to the zero, Lord. And that is why he's so beloved of Sri Ram. In this Chaupai, Tulsidas is saying, this Chaupai from Sundarkand, Tulsidas is saying, listen, Hanuman. No God or man or sage that has ever been born in this world has been such a benefactor to me as you. What service can I do you in return? When I think of it, I am unable to look you in the face. I am ashamed because I will not. No matter what I give you in return, Hanuman, it will never be enough. I can never repay you for what you have done for me. You see how much God appreciates whatever we do for him? So the Lord is saying, Hanuman, I so much appreciate all that you did for me. And yet, Hanumanji is saying, Prabhu, what are you saying, my Lord? I didn't do anything. Whatever was done, you did it. I was just your instrument. You did everything, Lord. Whatever was done through the power of your name. This is an incomparable devotee. This is a param bhakta, a supreme devotee. This is the Leela he's playing to show us the heights that one can reach in one's devotion to God. Sri Ram blesses him. Sri Ram says, I give you the boon that you will live forever. You will become a Chiranjeevi. You will not know death, Hanuman. All will honor and worship you like myself. The same respect they give to me, they will give to you, Hanuman. Your murti will be placed at the door of my mandir, and you'll be worshipped and honored first. Even before men worship me, they will worship you, Hanuman. And you shall be able to do all that even I cannot do. Imagine that burden, that boon that Sri Ram gave him. how blessed Hanumanji was to have received that divine boon from the Lord, and it was given because Hanumanji justly deserved it, totally deserved it. In this concluding Doha, Tulsidas writes,
Hanuman, 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 Hanuman.
पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुरभूप
हनुमान 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 हनुमान
पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुरभूप
हनुमान 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 हनुमान।
In Hanumanji, there was no ego. After Sri Ram left this world, Hanumanji, using his fingernails, etched Ram Katha on the rocks of the mountain. It was a labor of love. Can you imagine how hard it must have been to use his nails to write on rocks? How many times perhaps his hand must have bled? How long it must have taken to write that entire Ram Katha? It was a labor of love. It was his offering to Sri Ram. And yet, when Valmiki visited him and saw what he was doing, Valmiki became sad. Hanumanji said, "O great sage, why are you sad?" And Valmiki said, "Hanumanji, I am also writing Ram Katha, but who will read my Ram Katha? Your Ram Katha is so much greater than mine." Hanumanji said, "Never worry, great sage. I will erase all that I've written on the rocks. Your Ram Katha will stand alone. Everyone will read your Ram Katha. Don't worry." That labor of love that he had done for Sri Ram, he erased everything because there was no ego in his heart. He had no competition with anyone. He wanted the sage to have his Ram Katha, Valmiki's Ram Katha, to be read by the world. So even though he had spent so much time, so much effort in writing the story of Sri Ram, he willingly erased it for the benefit of another. So the Doha says, "O son of the wind, dispeller of all calamities, the very embodiment of all blessings, O king of the immortals, dwell in my heart with Ram, Lakshmana, and Sita. And that is what we pray this evening on this very holy day, this Hanuman Jayanti. We pray to this great bhakta, this great devotee, this Mahatma, this selfless being, this egoless being, this being whose heart was always filled with God. We pray to him to bless us with the same love and devotion that he had for God. We pray that he would always stay in our hearts, that we too, like him, can serve God, and we too, like him, can find God. May Hanumanji, may Sri Ram bless us all. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om.